know, a lot of work and a lot of montage goes in to this Dammocalypse. And here we are, we've made it to the film with so many montages, it makes Rocky IV look like it actually had a feature-length plot. Yes, we've come to the film that made Van Damme the man, Bloodsport. Now, I'm sure you've all heard by now, even if you don't watch mixed martial arts, that Dana White, the owner of UFC, has bought his own island. His own secret island that he's going to have fights take place on there. Now, he's going full, Mortal Kombat, Enter the Dragon. But here tonight, we're celebrating a film that was supposedly based on a real secret tournament, the Kumite. The story and script came from our old pal, Sheldon Lettish. If you remember, he was the director of Lionheart and Double Impact. And Lettish had heard all these crazy stories from Frank Dukes about this Kumite tournament, and to this day, there's a big argument on whether Frank Dukes was full of crap or Frank Dukes was the baddest man to ever walk the planet. But I do know this, not 2 minutes into this film, we got a montage and we got Drinking Binge, Nick Cage, the Walmart brand, of course. And we got our boy John Claude. He's wanting to leave the military, and they're not going to let him leave, but he says, hey, I'm going to go take a shower. And they say, okay. And so, of course, after a little bit of time goes by, the military escort, he wants to get a sneak peek at those buns from Brussels, so he goes onto the shower. But John Claude's gone AWOL. And before you know it, we got another montage. This time, John Claude's a kid. And they really nailed the casting with this kid because he's having a harder time speaking English than John Claude does. Now we gotta have Van Damme in pure adult training mode. My favorite bit is when he learns to make and set brunch blindfolded. This is definitely a skill I'll be teaching my daughter when she's 5 or 6 years old. The big news in this training montage is we finally learn how Van Damme can do the splits. Yes, Van Damme, he's tied up, being tortured by his sensei in a wonderful moment of homoerotic tension, being trained to do the splits like a cam girl laid off during the COVID crisis, training herself in fetishes. The more you can take, the more you can handle. And he's off to the Far East where he's on a bus. And a big guy, Ray Jax, he arrives on the bus, and he's appropriately titled here in Schlock. He's Hack Foe, Jim Dugan. And Hack Foe, he asks this girl if she wants to be with a real man. This Me Too moment is sponsored by cutting directly to a nice pair of legs in a bar as it pans up and it reveals our 80s brand Sharon Stone. Now, she somehow knows about this super secret Kumite competition that Jean-Claude is off to fight in. Apparently, the AV Club is going to do an article on it. Meanwhile, Jean-Claude sees Hack Foe. He's there playing a Street Fighter kind of video game, and they're going to duke it out. Jean-Claude beating him at his own coin-op game. Aren't you a little young for full contact? Hack Foe asks Jean-Claude. Aren't you a little old for video games? He retorts back, and this is how they become best friends. Hack Foe lets him know that if he wants to see some real competition, he should see him fight in the Kumite. For being super secret, this Kumite, I think it's going to be broadcast in 160 different countries on ESPN, the Ocho. Now, the word is out on who Jean-Claude's sensei is, but they want him to prove it to them. Now, apparently his sensei was a member of the Power Team. You remember them, doing steroids and breaking bricks for Jesus. I loved them because it was like WWF that you got to watch in church with my grandma. Now, Van Damme, the man, of course, takes care of it, no problem. Now, the military or CIA, I don't even remember which, but they're hunting down Jean-Claude to bring him back home because they, of course, know about the super secret Kumite. Meanwhile, super skinny Asian Iron Sheik wants 80s Sharon Stone to interview him privately and personally in his hotel room, if you know what I mean, about the super secret Kumite. Van Damme decides to play a little magic trick, and with some coinage, he Me Too's Asian Iron Sheik. Then lets 80s brand Sharon Stone know that he does in fact agree with Asian Iron Sheik on one thing. She has nice legs. A film made in a more socially aware time, this was not. And then Hack Foe Jim Dugan, he finally sees the splits for the first time, and he says, man, that hurts me just looking at it. So Frank Dukes and Jean-Claude had falling out a few years after this, and it led to him saying that Jean-Claude wasn't a real fighter, that he trained him and all that. Now, Frank Dukes' stories, most of them really can't be backed up at all, where there's actual footage and record of Jean-Claude's career. He was 18-1, I believe, in kickboxing. He was 44-4 in amateur. I do know that, he learned the splits from being able to do ballerina-type stuff. It helped him be flexible enough. So a lot of critics during the height of his popularity would call him a dancer, not a martial artist, but really, he did both. Then both of them get a look at Cheech and Chong Li, a man you just know that both of them are going to fight. We know they're going to fight him, by those 70 slow zooms back and forth. We get our first Kumite fights, including Hackfo. He goes full 2x4 on some poor guy, and then he cuts a full WWF promo afterwards, calling out Cheech Chong Lee. Now Cheech Chong Lee, he answers back by killing the guy in like 14 seconds, a new world record immediately broken by Van Damme the Man. He lays some poor chump out, leaves his gold tooth on the mat, like he's Joe Pesci from Home Alone. Now the CIA, military, police, whatever, they've caught up with Jean-Claude, and they're threatening to put 50,000 volts of pure taser action right into him, which leads to the best worst foot chase ever, pumping to some glorious cheesy 80s song, as Jean-Claude makes a whole game of making the CIA chase him all through the city, ultimately leading young Forrest Whitaker to take a bath in the bay. Meanwhile, Jean-Claude takes a buggy to go meet 80s brand Sharon Stone for their date. She can't decide what she wants more, a VIP pass to the Kumite tournament, or a good look at Jean-Claude Van Damme, that backside. Because this is where it pops up, of course, our obligatory Buns from Brussels shot. Now, Van Damme the Man isn't willing to let her into the Kumite, it's too dangerous to him. Before we know it, we're cutting to Hackfo, he's smashing bricks on his face, and then there we see her, 80s Sharon Stone, who proves she's willing to sleep with anyone in Asia to get into this super secret tournament. And then it's time for Montage City. As Van Damme, he double dragons his opponent, and Cheech Chong Lee straight up breaks a dude's bone right through the skin. And Van Damme, he's getting serious now. He's taking the shirt off and getting thumbs up from his opponent for it. You can cut the homoerotic tension with the splits, literally right into the Nutcracker suite. It's time for Hackfo versus Bolo. Bolo, he goes full American History X, curb stomping Hackfo, sending him right to the hospital. We're not even sure if he's alive. Now, of course, we know he's alive because he's the only one that shows up in the sequel. So now it's a sad sap montage time. Van Damme, he's out there on the patio of this high-up high-riser hotel. He's overlooking this beautiful shot of the city. You just know that 80s brand Sharon Stone is off gawking at this through some telescope. Wait. That was actual Sharon Stone and Sliver, never mind. Back at the Kumite for these final few matches, and Jean-Claude, he's trading kicks with this guy like two drunk frat bros, trading chest slaps at a kegger. Meanwhile, Bolo himself, Cheech Chong Lee, straight up murders another dude by snapping his neck, like Carol Baskin's tiger snapped her husband's. It's time for the final match. Now Chong Lee, he's got Hackfo's headband wrapped around his leg like some kind of sick trophy, and he's got some powder in his pants. And of course the ref allows it when he kicks Jean-Claude's face with it. This isn't WrestleMania, no need for Mr. Fuji to sneak attack it. Now the whole following sequence was filmed over crank for slow-mo, so it gives the sense that what Jean-Claude was caked in the face with was cocaine, because all he does is stare wide-eyed at his hands as Bolo beats the ever-loving snot out of him. He remembers training with his sensei, training for that brunch, blindfolded. And Cheech Chong Lee, Bolo himself, he ain't nothing compared to stuffed French toast. Now he may be as blind as America after the JFK assassination, but Jean-Claude himself puts on a martial arts clinic, using his leg as a windmill, flying in the air like Rey Mysterio Jr., and then a barrage of roundhouse kicks. He sends Bolo's brain back to wherever it came from. And he collects Hackfo's headband like a rock star collecting a pair of panties off the stage. And then he takes his trophy, a sword. All that for a sword. He put his life on the line literally, time after time, for a sword. Now he meets up with Hackfo at the hospital, and they do the Predator handshake, and they tell each other how much they love each other. You can cut the homoerotic tension with a taser, but you're not going to need those because Jean-Claude, he's going to willingly go back with the military CIA guys this time. And it's Schlocker time. We got best bone break for Bolo, say that 5 times fast. Best way to split your opponent's manhood while doing the actual splits. Best homoerotic Predator handshake between two bros. Best martial arts adaptation of the Nutcracker suite. Best peck pop for Bolo and for Frank Dukes himself. Best way to oversell yourself and get a movie made about a life that you probably didn't quite live. On my Winona Ryder's face is a walking emoji generator scale of Schlock cinema. I'm going to give Bloodsport, I'm going to give it 4 Winonas and a smirk. It gets an extra smirk for all those montages. You can check out streaming. I think my buddy Gonzi watched it on Netflix or Prime, one of those. I got a friend who watched it on YouTube, I think, actually. But of course, you can also watch it on DVD or Blu-ray. Check it out before Dana White ruins it for all of us.
Schlock.